I'm from Madeira. That sentence sounds small on paper, but it carries everything: the salt in the air, the narrow streets where we kicked old balls until our knees bled, the nights when there was no food in the house and the idea of a future felt as far away as any horizon. I say that not to make a point about poverty, but because those early limits taught me what the rest of my life would need to be: a refusal to accept what most people call enough. My childhood was humble. My father worked hard and drank too much. My mother worked even harder. And we shared a tiny room in Funchal where the radio was sometimes the loudest thing in the house. Growing up on that island shaped the way I think about hunger, not just hunger for food, but hunger for something better. People laughed at the kid from Madeira. They said I was too skinny, too ambitious, too loud. When I left the island to go to Lisbon to join Sporting's academy, it felt like being cut loose in a storm. I was 11, maybe 12. I still remember the bus, the sea behind us, the silence between my family and me. I left alone. There were nights where I would lie awake and think I had made a mistake, that maybe the laughter was right. But the same nights also made me decide that I would never let anyone else define what I could be. I wanted trophies not to show off, but to prove to myself that the hunger could be filled by something I earned. The story everyone likes is the goals, the free kicks, the celebrations. That's easy to show on a screen. What people don't see are the hours when nobody watched, the runs at dawn, the extra reps after practice, the cold shower skip so the muscles would shake just a little longer. My routine, the obsession with sleep, the food, the recovery all started because I couldn't believe that talent alone would carry me. I remember interviews where I said I wanted to be the best, and people read that as arrogance. It wasn't arrogance, it was a promise. I made a contract with myself that I would outwork everyone because I had to climb from a place where there was no margin for error. The discipline became my language. There were setbacks, of course. When my father died, it's left a hole that trophies couldn't touch. He died young from a liver condition. For years after, I carried this complicated mix of regrets and motivation. Regret that he didn't live to see everything, and the motivation that every medal would be a message to him, that his son had made something of himself. I have said before in interviews that grief taught me to be relentless. It made me understand that some moments in life are not about celebration, but about responsibility. That responsibility kept me training when my body screamed not to. People ask, when did you know? It's a romantic question. They expect a single moment, a flash where doubt evaporated. For me, it wasn't a single moment. It was 1,000 small confirmations. A coach nod, a physiotherapist's quiet compliment, a teammate's first pass that trusted me. I remember the first time I played at Old Trafford and felt the roar. It was different from anything I'd known. It was as if every early limit had been turned into energy in that stadium. Those moments piled up until they made belief, but belief without work is nothing. You can stand in a stadium and feel like a god. For a minute, the next morning you still have to run. People will tell you the path was straight. It wasn't. There were arguments, expulsions at school when I was young because I was raw and restless, injuries that took me out for weeks and made me wonder if the body would cooperate with the mind. There were nights I could have given up. I remember the nights of pain after long games when lying down felt like the only honest thing to do. But even in pain, there was a lesson. The body heals, but the habits you build in the dark, that's what stays. I made habits to be unbreakable. I trained my mornings so the rest of the day could be calm. I studied my weaknesses as if they were opponents. Every improvement was deliberate. You hear the line, "They laugh at me in Madeira." That line holds a truth and a trap. The truth is simple. People mocked what they didn't understand. They saw a kid who was different and made fun of that difference. But the trap is thinking that the laughter was the only fuel. Laughter taught me to be sharper. It taught me to turn ridicule into rhythm. I began to measure myself not by applause, but by the degree to which I could improve before anyone clapped. It's why the hard work mattered more than the match. If you can love the process, then the results become a byproduct and they will come. There's another thing people often miss. Being at the top is lonely in a way you don't expect. The more trophies, the more noise, and the less time you have to hear your own thoughts. Success builds a wall of expectation, and to sustain what you've built, you have to manage that wall. For me, family became the anchor. I wanted to give my son not the things I didn't have, but the lessons I learned, that nothing comes without work, that pride must be earned daily. I've said in interviews that I won't pressure my children into football. I want them to learn to be the best at whatever they choose. That's from experience. Love without discipline can leave a person lost. There were moments of public humiliation too. The critics, the pundits, the media cycles that turn every bad touch into a reason to debate character. I learned early that you cannot control what others say. You can only control what you do next. I focus on being consistent. Consistency is a quiet, stubborn kind of power. It doesn't demand applause. It demands persistence. That persistence led to trophies and records, but those things were not the goal in themselves. They were measurements of a life organized around one value, improvement. And then there are the nights when you are alone and you must face your reasons. The reasons are not always noble. Sometimes it is vanity, sometimes fear. For me, the answer landed somewhere between pride and purpose. I wanted to be the best because I wanted to prove to a small boy from Madeira that origins do not determine destiny. I wanted to set an example for my family and for anyone watching who'd ever been told they weren't enough. That's why discipline matters. That's why diet, recovery, mental preparation, everything became sacred. If you look at athletes who last, their secret is not magic, it's system. A system that makes excellence inevitable. When Portugal lifted the European Championship, it was not just a trophy, it was a statement. I have spoken about that night, about being injured and still part of the team, about how the feeling was more than personal glory. It was about a country that believed when others doubt. Moments like that reframe the pain, they make the sacrifices legible. But even the happiest moments are quietly complicated, because the career that brings joy also takes things. There is time you cannot get back. There are family dinners missed, birthdays postponed. I have never hidden that cost. Success asks a price, and every person must decide if they can live with the bill. For me, the answer was yes, because the work was my choice and the sacrifices were part of the contract I signed with my ambition. If you're listening and thinking, that sounds like sacrifice I cannot make, understand this. Not everyone will choose the same path. Some people choose balance, some choose family first. That choice is valid, but if you choose a path toward greatness, you must understand it will demand things most others will not. You will be lonely, you will be criticized, you will be misunderstood. And if you can accept that and still go forward, you will find a kind of freedom, the freedom of a life lived by your own rules. That was the lesson I learned leaving Madeira, and it is the lesson I try to pass on when someone asks me how I reached the things I have reached. There's a video that circulates from my early days at Manchester United. I was a teenager, dancing with the ball, showing off step-overs like there were fireworks. People saw arrogance, they didn't see insecurity. Every flick, every feint was my way of saying, I belong here. Sir Alex Ferguson saw through that noise. He told me once, play with purpose, not with ego. Those words shaped me more than any trophy ever did. From that moment, every time I touched the ball, I wasn't performing, I was proving. That discipline, that refinement of energy became the foundation for everything that came next. At United, the laughter came back, but this time was different. It came from fans of rival clubs, from pundits who said I'd never finish like the legends before me. I remember sitting alone after training, frustrated, hearing my own thoughts too loudly, maybe they right, and then I'd stand up, put on my boots again, and run drills until the floodlights were the only company. When you work like that, the world begins to quiet down. The noise fades, the self-doubt turns into a whisper, and what remains is clarity, the understanding that work is the answer to everything. When I won my first Ballon d'Or, I thought it would silence the laughter forever, but it doesn't work that way. The world finds new reasons to doubt. They say selfish, or you only score because of others. You learn that external validation is fleeting. The only real silence comes from peace with yourself. I found that peace in repetition, in waking up early, training the same movement 1,000 times until it became art. There's beauty in discipline that outsiders never see. During my years in Madrid, the world's eyes felt heavier. Fame grows like a shadow. It stretches into places you don't want it to reach. I love Madrid, the fans, the Bernabeu, the hunger for perfection, but I also learned that admiration can quickly turn into expectation. If you score once, they want two. If you score two, they want a hat-trick. Every match becomes an exam. That pressure either breaks you or builds you. I chose to let it build me. I used to watch videos of my own mistakes. People think I only watch goals. No. I watched the shots that missed, the passes that went astray. I studied failure like it was a textbook. Improvement lives inside discomfort. That mindset made me more ruthless, more precise. Each season, I added something new, better positioning, stronger jumps, sharper finishes. I didn't want to be remembered for moments. I wanted to be remembered for mastery. But even in mastery, there is loneliness. I'd come home after matches, my body bruised, my head buzzing from adrenaline, and the house will be quiet. The kids asleep, the night stretching out like an ocean. That's when you think of Madeira again, of the simplicity of childhood, when a ball and a street light were enough. Sometimes I miss that simplicity. But then I remember the boy who dreamed of this life. I owe him everything. I can't let him down by complaining about the weight of success. One of the hardest lessons came during the transition, when your body starts to change. You feel it in small ways. Recovery takes longer, sprints burn deeper. For an athlete, it's not just physical, it's existential. Who are you if you slow down? I had to reinvent myself, focus on positioning, timing, leadership. The goal was no longer to outrun time, but to outthink it. People said, Ronaldo is finished. They always say that. And yet, every time they bury me with words, I come back sharper. In those moments, I leaned on something bigger, faith. I don't talk about it often because faith is personal, but I believe that every struggle has a reason. I've seen things that logic can't explain, timing too perfect to be coincidence. The universe rewards discipline and belief. That belief carried me through injuries, losses, and personal pain. It reminded me that gratitude and ambition can coexist. You can be hungry and humble at the same time. There were nights before finals when I couldn't sleep, not because of nerves, because of visualization. I'd close my eyes and play the match in my mind, the runs, the passes, the sound of the crowd. By the time I stepped onto the field, I had already lived it. That's not talent, it's preparation. I've told young players, train your mind before you train your body. When you visualize success long enough, the body learns to follow. The laughter from Madeira still echoes, sometimes not from others, but from memory. It's like a reminder in the back of my head that comfort is dangerous. Every time people say, you've done enough, I hear that laugh and it pushes me forward. Maybe that's why I still train like it's my first season. People call it obsession. Maybe it is. But I call it respect for the dream, for the gift, for the game that gave me everything. When I think about legacy, I don't think about numbers. Records are temporary. They belong to whoever breaks them next. What lasts is impact. Did you inspire someone to push harder, to wake up earlier, to believe more, that's legacy. If a kid somewhere in the world looks at my journey and say, if he did it from Madeira, maybe I can too, then every drop of sweat was worth it. There's one story I don't tell often. During a tough period, when criticism was everywhere, I sat in my car after a match and didn't start the engine for 20 minutes. I stared at the steering wheel and thought, what if I stop right now? The idea terrified me because I realized I wouldn't know who I was without the game. Football isn't what I do, it's who I am, it's the way I express discipline, love, and purpose. When I finally turned the key and drove home, I promised myself that as long as I could walk, I would never quit. So when people ask what drives me now after everything, the answer is simple. The same thing that drove me at 12, leaving Madeira alone on that bus, the same voice that said, keep going, don't stop until the laughter turns into applause. Every career has seasons. There's the season of proving yourself, the season of dominance, and then the season of reflection. I'm living that last one now. Reflection doesn't mean slowing down. It means understanding what everything meant. When I look back, I don't see just trophies or headlines. I see every morning that began before sunrise, every small choice that added up to a life. Success was never a single explosion. It was a slow fire that I refused to let die. In the beginning, I chased greatness because I wanted to escape where I came from. Now, I chase it to honor where I came from. Madeira is still inside me, the sea, the hills, the smell of salt in the air. Whenever I go back, I visit the small pitch where I first played.
It reminds me that the boy kicking the ball under streetlights had everything he needed already. Hunger, belief, and the courage to dream when the world laughed. That boy taught the man everything he knows.
When people call me a machine, I smile. Machines don't feel pain, they don't cry, they don't doubt. I have done all those things. Behind every goal celebration, there's a story of sacrifice. Behind every smile in the photos, there's a night of exhaustion that nobody sees. What you learn over time is that perfection is not the absence of weakness, it's the mastery of recovery. I get tired, I get frustrated, but I don't stay there. You rise, because that's what discipline demands. I've learned something about criticism is a mirror. It doesn't show you truth, it shows you projection, what others fear in themselves. When someone mocks your ambition, it's because your drive reminds them of their own hesitation. Once I understood that, I stopped fighting critics. I let their noise become background music. The louder they got, the calmer I became. The real competition has always been with myself. There's another thing success teaches you, humility. True humility isn't pretending to be small. It's realizing that you are part of something larger. Every assist, every coach, every fan chant, they build you. When I scored, it wasn't me alone. It was every teammate who passed, every staff member who prepared, every supporter who believed. That's why I point to the sky after every goal. It's a gesture of gratitude, not celebration. As time moves, I see younger players rise hungry, fearless, full of energy. I see myself in them, and I feel proud, not threatened. Records are meant to fall. That's the evolution of the game. I tell them sometimes, talent gives you the start, but discipline gives you the finish. They nod, maybe they understand, maybe not yet. But they will when the spotlight fades and only the work remains. There is beauty in longevity. People underestimate what it takes to stay relevant for 2 decades. It's not luck, it's reinvention. You have to fall in love with the grind again and again. There were mornings when I didn't want to move, when every muscle ached from years of repetition. Those are the days that define champions, not the finals or the awards, but the quiet mornings when nobody would know if you gave up. I often think about what comes after football, not in fear, but in curiosity. I'll always be connected to the game, maybe through mentoring, maybe through building something for kids who are like me. I want to create places where dreams are taken seriously, where a child with holes in his shoes can still believe. Because I was that child once. If I can be the bridge for someone else, then my story keeps going even after the whistle stops. Sometimes fans ask if I still feel pressure. The truth is yes. Pressure never disappears, it evolves. Now it's the pressure to be a good father, to be an example beyond the field. My children watch everything, not just the goals, but how I respond to loss, how I treat others. That awareness keeps me grounded. Greatness without character is empty. The older I get, the more I value silence. There's clarity in it. Early in my career, I filled every quiet moment with noise, music, interviews, celebration. Now I crave the sound of nothing. In silence, you hear gratitude. You remember that the ball doesn't care about fame, it only responds to touch. That purity is what made me fall in love with football in the first place. To anyone listening who feels underestimated, I'll tell you this. Being laughed at is a gift. It sharpens you. It teaches you to listen only to the voice that believes. If I had listened to the laughter in Madeira, I'd still be on that island dreaming instead of living the dream. Use doubt as your energy. Let every you can't become watch me. And when you finally arrive wherever that is for you, don't forget where you started. The climb is what gives the view its meaning. The laughter that once heard will sound different. It will sound like applause. When I think of my journey now, I don't see it as destiny. I see it as decision. Every morning I decide again, train, believe, repeat. That's how dreams survive reality. If there's one thing I want to leave behind, is this message. Greatness isn't given. It's built brick by brick, moment by moment, failure by failure. So yes, they laughed at me in Madeira, but laughter fades. What remains is work, faith, and love for what you do. That's my story. That's why I'm still here. And maybe one day, when the boots are hung and the noise is gone, someone will look back and say, he didn't just play football, he taught us how to keep going.